Good afternoon. Welcome to Key Questions for Key Staffers for the town of Fort Myers Beach. My name is Jim Adderholt. I'm the Vice Mayor for the town of Fort Myers Beach. And the purpose of this show is to get key subject matter experts from the town of Fort Myers Beach and extract as much information from them during the show to help folks get the information they need to help with the in recovery efforts. The goal is to have our friends in the media, like Beach Talk Radio, The Observer, the news press, the local TV stations, to show this where they can. We're obviously going to post it on all the town's social media platforms. And then we also hope our friends at home who utilize Facebook. Facebook has been so important during post-DN to get information out. If you see the show and you like it and you want to post it on your Facebook page, that sure would be a big help to us to get the information out. Abraham Lincoln said, "Let the people know the facts and the country will be saved." And this is a small effort to try to work in that tradition to get as much information out to the public as possible. We've got a great guest today. This is our 4th episode of Key Questions for Key Staffers. We have the town manager, our interim town manager, if you will. Chris Holley is with us. Chris, welcome. Good to have you with us. And Chris has come in rather suddenly, I think, from both his perspective and our perspective, but we're thankful to have him. And Chris, I wanted to start by, you've been here for what, about a month and a half now?
Yes, sir.
And so this is an odd question, but it's interesting to me. When you've been in municipal government for most of your career and understand local government as well as anyone. When you got here, and obviously we're after a serious disaster, what surprised you the most, given what you've seen over your career? What was the most surprising aspect of your initial tenure here on Fort Myers Beach?
Well, the disaster is obviously what is affecting everything. And I always try to get a sense of the mental state of the community, because I've been through them as a manager. I've been through them in other capacities, and the mental side of this is very important. And so this community has a resilience to it. I don't have to tell you that, you live here. So the people are hard at recovery. They're excited about the future. They're not dwelling on the past. There's a great deal of activity on the island. You got to be careful because there's just lots going on. And it's great to see. As a younger man, when I lived in Southwest Florida, frequented the beach, it was just, it was a very positive takeaway. Was that because it's easy to get depressed, it's easy to get down, it's easy to say, woe is me. I rode out Hurricane Michael in Port St. Joe, Florida, just a few miles from where it made landfall. And for the first several months, the town was in a state of shock. Lost a lot of its downtown area, lost most of the older homes that were on the water. Same has happened here. So that's what hit me, was just the resilience of the community, the attitude of the folks, the commitment to recover and restore and to rebuild, and the we'll be back kind of attitude is what everybody's got around here.
It's great. It's very encouraging. You found a place to stay here on the island, which is wonderful. I'm curious, and even if you're sleeping well, metaphorically, I love the question, what keeps you awake at night? And we're going to get into all the individual issues in a minute, but I'm curious as to what, given what you've seen over the last month and a half, what are the burdens that you're bearing right now that really give you angst? There's a lot of encouraging things happening on the island, don't get me wrong, but what's keeping you awake at night?
Well, so my whole career, I feel like I've been a team builder. You don't succeed in any effort without a good team. So I played sports in high school, football, basketball, all that kind of stuff. I've been on good teams and I've been on not so good teams. And I've always focused on building a good team, because that's how you serve the public, is with a good team. So the team that's here, when I say that, that's the staff. Certainly the council provides all the leadership in terms of policy decisions and that, but there's a lot of vacancies. There's obviously the town manager position is vacant, finance director positions vacant, HR position vacant, community development vacant, and of course community development for the public it's the building side of things. It's the most important.
It's
well,
key,
finance
yeah.
is important because
But it's
without
not what
money,
not what the public sees.
the public doesn't
Yeah.
see that. That's an admin function behind the curtain. The building department is critical for the next however long, and not having a director, limited on staff. So the challenge, the thing that keeps me awake is how to navigate trying to get as many resources from our federal and state partners because we're not sure about our finances. So taking advantage of the people offering to help, and you have to have a plan to where that's a short-term solution. And so simultaneous to filling the short-term needs, you have to stay focused on the long-term picture as well. The unique for the town is that there are a number of contract positions, and that's new to me. So navigating contracts and who's under contract, and does that work or does it need to be something different? So the city has invested significantly in the building department with contract help. And so I'm still trying to create, short-term solutions, primarily through state partners, if possible, and then some long-term solutions. We're actively recruiting for the director position. We hope we can find some good people. We have financial challenges there. So it's an enterprise operation, so permit fees pay for the staff over there, and the council, rightfully so, to help the community waive permit fees for the first 3 months after the storm. Will come out of that next month. And so we have to start kind of planning for financially what we can afford, and then a plan to implement going forward. I think we need some additional planning help, plan review help. We anticipate, as crazy as the 3 months after the storm have been, mainly that's, general repairs, that's demolition permits, that's, things that we can handle single-family homes. The bigger developments, the what you see on the news now is the older resorts are selling. People that are want to just move on. It's a lot of work, obviously. So you're seeing property changes hands. People are still dealing with insurance situations, but the momentum will build on large-scale developments, and we have to have the expertise to be able to process those permit requests in a timely manner, so that the reconstruction and rebuilding process moves as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because I've met with a number of these entities, many of them local, who are coming back to rebuild and redevelop, and some of the visions and ideas are so exciting for this island. I can't begin to tell you how optimistic I am about the future of Fort Myers Beach because of the connections that the redevelopers have, and the folks that are rebuilding to our community. This is not money that's from out of the country or from out of state. These are a lot of local people who've had experiences on Fort Myers Beach, who care about our beach, who love our beach, and some of the ideas coming out are just going to be spectacular. So we'll get into that a little bit later. One of the things that you talked about, the team and team building, what I find interesting as a political scientist is that we have a governing structure here at the town council where our town charter empowers the town manager to be extremely powerful, particularly as the chief executive officer for the town, the kind of day-to-day operational person. And the mayor traditionally is kind of runs the council meetings, but is a co-equal with the other council members. But given a disaster like we've had, and legitimately so, the mayor has elevated that role. The mayor's role has been elevated in a way that's very unique and I think appropriate. And I'm curious, because you're in a lot of the meetings with the mayor, and I would just, regardless of whether folks always agree or disagree with the mayor or myself, whatever, but we've got a fella who home was severely damaged. His business was severely damaged. He before he became mayor, right after the storm, he takes his facility where his business is, and along with some wonderful volunteers, turns it into this giant distribution hub for the sort of the rebuilding of Fort Myers Beach, helping people with all kinds of various needs. and then he ascends to being mayor, and he's in all these meetings, and it's really a full-time job, where the traditional council is a part-time council, part-time mayor. The mayor's salary is modest. It's something like $19,200. The city or the town council members get $16,800, and so the folks are not in it for the money. They're in it because they love public service. But I don't think people understand how awesome our mayor has done in terms of his time and his heart and his commitment in all of this. You see it. I'm not allowed to be in these meetings with him because of the sunshine rules prevent us from being in meetings together unless they're publicly noticed. But you see Dan at work, and I'm just curious behind the scenes. And you've seen traditional mayors in these roles, but given the fact that Dan, because the charter doesn't allow him to be a more traditional mayor, he sort of assumed that role. Give us a sense of just the time and effort that the mayor has put into this and how he's partnered with you and your team.
I've had the unique privilege of working in several different forms of government and with different types of elected folks. Did a year in the city of Pensacola recently, and it is a strong mayor form, but the mayor did not, he hired me and then subsequent managers to run the day-to-day operations. He had no desire to be the CEO. That was his decision. The previous mayor to that was the opposite, and so I've seen it different ways. Dan is certainly very committed to this community and to the job at hand. It's not hard for me. I think the sharing of information, the more everybody has in the way of information, the more everybody's comfortable that we're in sync on where we're going. The less information, then the more misunderstanding, confusion, lack of a vision. So all managers are different in their style. I've always felt that having the elected folks have the same information that I have helps everybody. And so I do my best to keep the mayor to where he knows everything I know, and then he shares what he knows, because he's certainly much more connected to the community and community leaders than I am. I'm a newcomer, so I think we're working well together. I had no problem in the mayor. I invited him to the first staff meeting we had. It's a very simple ask from a manager standpoint. Just don't give staff direction. I'm the one that's supposed to do that. It gets very confusing if we have multiple people giving staff direction. So it's a fairly simple thing. We all want the same thing done. Just use me. And if someone asks me to do something that I think will cause a problem or create something, then that's my job, is to say, I'm not sure that's a real good idea, and we haven't had many of those. Mayor and I communicate very well. He listens to me, I listen to him. I think it's going well. Dan does a great job.
And I guess what I was trying to do, that's interesting, an aside. I was just interested, I don't know that the public understands that this has been all-consuming for the mayor. For a position that's traditionally a part-time role, he has been living this literally out of his camper in front of the Buttonwood facility, which is the distribution hub for all the sort of relief efforts, while he's been mayor, and the meetings that are involved with all the various county and state and federal officials that you're obviously a part of. I just think it's pretty amazing to see the mayor step up the way he has, particularly his background as a builder, which I think is appropriate given what the island is going through. I just think it's interesting for the public to know that this is not traditionally in a normal world part of the mayor's role, but he has ascended to that because of the unique situation that we're in partnership with you and your team.
All mayors have been different. I saw Kathleen Pasadoma, she's the president of the Senate last week, and was sharing, she's from Naples. I worked in Naples for 10 years, one of the strongest mayors. And the form of government in Naples, somewhat similar here. The mayor is generally ceremonial. We had a gentleman by the name of Ned Putzel that got elected mayor back in the 80s, and he was a hard charger. He was former CIA head and had a very colorful history of public service. And one of the brightest guys I ever met, and we worked from his agenda for most of the 4 years that he was in office.
Former CIA head. Did we have a former CIA head in charge of Sanibel for a while as well?
They like Southwest Florida. We have a lot of very influential people from Washington that end up in Southwest Florida. I won't go into some of the people that I met in Naples. Obviously, our governor, former governor, Rick Scott, has a home in Naples, so it's a nice place.
By the way, I talked to Rick Scott's office today about the post office again. I had, there was an article on Beach Talk Radio, which I sent to the 2 postal officials, the person who testified before the council, but I also reached out to his boss, a guy named Tim Costella, who's the regional director for all delivery in the southern United States. And I restated our case, and they said, "Oh, we're still studying. And I said, we can't even mail a letter on Fort Myers Beach right now. You've got to put forth a plan of action." And so we recontacted Senator Scott's office. His staff has been awesome. Again, the senator, if people don't remember, the senator literally picked up the phone and called the Postmaster General, which is a big deal. And the Postmaster General, we thought, was given a directive to his staff that we want some action on this. So I think there's going to be a second wave of pressure. Hopefully we'll get the post office's attention. That's been a challenge. This is sort of inside baseball. I think it's really important for the town to understand, and you are on the front lines of this. We had originally led a contract for emergency services to help us sort of document all of the expenses for the town, help us liaison with FEMA, deal with some of the other grants and other opportunities for emergency services. We have since put that back out to bid again, and I thought it might be helpful for you to explain why we did that, and also the importance of that entity, whoever should get it, and what role they'll serve as we go forward here as part of our recovery.
So a lot of the first few weeks here was rightfully so focused in our procurement process. Having been through disasters, you need to make sure that your reimbursement request to FEMA will be honored, and that you'll be refunded or receive money back from our federal and state partners. So the procurement process is very important. So there have been multiple situations where in the heat of battle, right after the storm, the human nature is to try to get as much done as quickly as possible. And so you go about looking at the vendors that you have that could help. You have to look at the contracts you have. You weigh the pros and cons of the time that it takes to re-procure services to getting the job done. And so there were some decisions made to use services that now in hindsight we have to re-procure. And one of them was the disaster recovery contractor that was on site. We looked at that. We had some help from our friends at the Division of Emergency Management, and sent the procurement up, and they had there's very technical language that has to be in a procurement for the federal government to okay. Mm-hmm. And so we are out now for that contract, which will be our primary contractor that pushes paper to FEMA and gets responses. All the damage assessment reports will turn into projects, and then to get funding from the federal government, everything has to be done with the I's dotted and the T's crossed. So,
and this entity, will it primarily be our liaison with FEMA, or will he also help us with the state and the county and other grant opportunities, not-for-profits?
There are multiple disciplines associated with this selection.
Okay.
We have insurance issues. We'll have to deal with our insurance
They can
carrier.
help with that as well?
They can provide public adjusters and things that you need to kind of make sure that you're being treated fairly. There's been discussion of bringing on some sort of an urban planning effort. Mm-hmm. With there's going to be some work done by FDOT on the circulation of traffic at the base of the bridge. Obviously, all the commercial establishments down there, especially the older ones that might have been grandfathered in or non-conforming way back, now have to meet new standards, and there will be challenges with that. And so there have been people that have gone into communities in this situation that can help give options on what has worked in other communities. So there's no sense in reinventing the wheel.
Yeah.
Can we get someone in here to kind of help guide us? We're already in the midst of a comp plan review and a land development code review. I think I've mentioned that President Pasadomo has some ideas on affordable housing issues that will kind of be part of that conversation, and you can get those kinds of services through your disaster recovery team.
And this disaster recovery firm, would their costs be recoverable as well, potentially by FEMA?
Everything we do, we're trying to make sure is recoverable through FEMA.
Very good.
So, and we're re-procuring our general engineering work. We backed up and made sure that someone put eyes on that solicitation. It was already out, but we amended it based on what we learned. So pretty much everything that we do now, procurement-wise, we're taking a second look at just to make sure. We have some people coming in later today volunteering to help create a vision for City Hall. City Hall is the focal point of local government. It's where meetings take place. It's where services are delivered. And we have no City Hall. And we're going to be in temporary housing for a while. But while I'm here, I'm trying to, it's easy to kind of just look at the building over there and say, right now we're in trailers, back to the team, have a high-performing team. They need some comfortable work environment to work from. And I know sitting in trailers gets old fast. We've been in it for 3 months, and we're getting some modulars in next week. And we'll transition from this trailer to hopefully a better trailer, a little bigger.
Do you envision, Chris, the trailer concept being our interim or temporary town hall until our new town hall is built, or do you still see the potential for another facility as an interim town hall? What makes sense at this point?
We've looked around the island at 2 or 3 places, and it's in general the big challenge a lot is access. A lot, elevators are damaged. Any building that needs to move people up and down is probably not going to be available for 6-8 a year. I don't know. You talk to people on the island that are trying to get their elevator switched, the switching gears or whatever is a year and a half out in some cases. I mean, it's just crazy. So for the foreseeable future, the modular buildings will probably be our home. There is an emergency project on the Bay Oaks Community Center, which we hope the bid award will come to the council at their meeting on the 9th, and we will quickly, try to bring that facility back up. Now, I'm a former Parks and Rec person, so I'm passionate about open space and having options for community events. And my suggestion to the council and to the mayor has been, let's try to hold off on putting office space on like a basketball court. Meeting there with the town council, great, 2 or 3 times a month, whatever that is, but having that facility for the public's use, getting kids back involved in recreational programs, getting the pool open back up maybe for next summer, getting the ball fields. I mean, that is important to a community, to have culture, to have arts festivals, to have whatever events that we can schedule. It's part of the fiber of the community, and
a lot of those school kids. Appreciate that. Yeah,
I'm trying to suggest that we not take over Bay Oaks as a city hall. That we try to, do the best we can with what we've got. There may be a facility, that comes online that wants to work with the town that we can move into for office space, because I don't really know how long the city hall will take. We're partnering with the fire department. We're currently on property that they own. They want to be part of the effort. Obviously, there's some assets that we can share, parking, things like that. If they're going to build kind of an EOC type facility, there's no sense, a hard room or a safe room, they call it, in City Hall if there's one right next door.
Do you envision that those buildings being joined together and just half being the new fire department, half being town hall? Do you envision town hall still being across the street? Just how do you see it playing
That's
out?
the purpose of the
Yeah.
visit today from people who build public facilities all over the country.
Yeah.
So we just called. This was Director Guthrie's suggestion. He's gone through a planning process for the state EOC, and he said there are people that know a lot more than us, and why don't you take advantage of that? And I called someone I knew in Tallahassee the next day, and they said we'd love to come down and help. So it's still our hope that at the workshop on the 12th that we'll come forward with ideas and someone that can answer your questions about how long this is going to take. FEMA will only pay for replacement of what we lost. I'm told by staff that was in the building that it probably wasn't adequate before the storm, which means you, and rightfully so, you should be looking at building a town hall that will last you the next 10, 20 years. So it's going to probably be more space than FEMA will pay for. And of course, the big question is, where do we find the money to build, the next city hall? And of course, that was some of the conversations we had about our legislative ask for this year. And that's right now one of the top priorities, to try to get the council comfortable with what you want from your delegation this coming session. I think there'll be a lot of focus on hurricane recovery. It wasn't just Ian, it was Nicole, and there's people, other friends and neighbors in Florida that are suffering storm damage. So, but we want to make sure that we are prepared with data and information that we can share. I think you and other council members, and certainly the mayor, need to plan on going to Tallahassee multiple times. We have a schedule of committee meetings that are coming up in January and February. Session starts in March, right around the corner. They need to see you often. They tend to, if they don't see you, then they tend to forget about you. So.
No, I understand that. As I had that experience in Indiana serving the legislature, and I do think I've been so impressed with our county partners and our state representative and our new state senator, and the whole delegation here in Lee County, I'm optimistic that we're going to get some help at the legislature. But you're right, we've got to have the appropriate strategy and make the appropriate ask and make it in the appropriate way, and be in sync with our legislative leadership as well. So I think that's great. So we've hit the town hall, we've hit the temporary town hall. I'm curious. The town finances, I know it's a challenge. I know we've got some revenue issues right now. Obviously, parking's a big part of our revenue stream. Permits are part of our revenue stream. And some of the property tax issues that the legislature is wrestling with are going to affect us. But the town was in pretty good fiscal health before the hurricane hit. I want to allay concerns. I mean, let me before, I don't want to prejudice what you say. There are folks who think the town's going to go bankrupt. There's a lot of doom. There's not a lot, but there's some doom and gloomers out there that say we're going to go bankrupt. We're going to have to go unincorporated back into Lee County. I'm not seeing that, Chris. Are you at this point?
No, I'm not. Short answer is no, I'm not. I think the town isn't, given what's happened, in good financial position. FEMA has sent an initial check of $7.5 million, which we received last week, for damages. Our insurance carrier, the League of Cities insurance program, has sent an initial $3 million check down. We're sitting on reserves, in that $3 to $5 million, depending on, which accounts you look at. So short term, no, I'm not worried. Long term, yes, I'm worried. Our initial checks from the tax collector's office are not what we anticipated. I don't want to overreact to that because ad valorem comes in over time. There's been some extensions allowed because of the hurricane, so I don't want to read too much into it, but I think you have to be very vigilant. And there's been outreach to the county on this issue. There are communications going on with the tax collector's office. I think for all the taxing entities, the fire chief has shared with me his initial checks from the tax collector well below what he anticipated. So Public safety is very, very important.
Does that happen because the assessed value is not changed because it should be 2022? What do we know why?
Don't want no. I don't even want to speculate.
Okay, so it's just a little
there's
bit.
a lot of there are a lot of factors in it. There are just a lot of factors.
Okay.
People that lost their home and don't have it anymore, and I mean, if you have a mortgage, then you have an escrow account, and your mortgage company pays your tax bills when they're due, and so unless somebody directs otherwise, that's the normal process. But people who may not have a mortgage, I would anticipate that they're making tough decisions on their tax bill and what to do. They may be in the midst of trying to sell their property, and that's a lot of tax bills, a lot of money. Do they just wait, have it come out of proceeds from that? There's a lot of issues that could be related to this, so I don't want to speculate.
Okay, a lot of variables, yeah.
But this goes back to our initial ask, our top priority when we addressed the delegation was we're going to need some financial help. This year's what's important right now. Next year, as you said, so values are normally set on January 1. And so this coming January 1 is only a week or so away. There's a lot of damaged structures on the island, and so the ad valorem for next year is going to be a big challenge. And then the state has already last week in their legislation going to provide refunds for at least 3 months of the year, October, November, December. And I don't completely understand if there's a refund given, will it come out of our proceeds,
right.
And which will compound the problem for next year.
Yeah.
And so there has to be, it's been done before in Florida. After Andrew in Miami, there was a trust fund created by the state where sales tax proceeds, normally after a big storm, there's an uptick because of all the purchasing that everybody makes. And so, there are revenue streams that the legislature can look at to create something that works. And it's been done in Florida. After Michael 4 years ago, there was oil spill money from the BP Deepwater Horizon event, and there was some of the trust funds used to support local government, county and local government in the Panhandle after Hurricane Michael. So the precedence there, the commitment from President Pasadomo and others, our delegation members, is we're gonna help, and it will be a several year. Now, eventually, all the redevelopment is going to kickstart everything.
Right.
So this is somewhat short term, depends on how you look at short term, but it's several years. This year, next year, certainly. Maybe the year after that. I would anticipate after that you'll be back on your feet and things will be whatever the new norm is.
Chris, one of the things that I hear a wide variety of rumors about is the permitting process, and we just talked about how the waiving of permitting fees will expire soon, and that'll generate some revenue for additional staff. It sounds like we've got some potential state partners coming in to help triage that department with some permitting folks. I mean, I heard the mayor last night on his show with on Beach Talk talking about that we're about 2 weeks in terms of turnaround for a traditional permit. Is that fair? Because I'm hearing crazy rumors about much deeper backlog. It sounds like, are you comfortable with that 2 weeks estimate?
Well, no, I wouldn't say I'm comfortable.
No, I don't mean comfortable, but is it accurate?
Well,
I guess. Yeah.
It all depends. I mean, I'm told we are caught up on demolition permits. So we started, we have to shift our focus from time to time to address the immediate need. And with the system that's in place for people to have their lot demoed and hauled off not at their expense, at the expense of the state or feds, created a backlog. We were up to close to 100 permit apps that hadn't been acted on. So we took some permit techs off of single family stuff and shifted them to demo. And we're now caught up on the demo. We're supposedly process them in a day or so. And so, because it's important for the businesses and the homes that are destroyed to be cleared, while we have all this these assets on the island, and they won't be here forever. Strongly encourage residents that have not made a decision about what to do to take advantage of the programs that are in place to get the debris cleared off their lot free of charge while we're doing it.
And as we talked about a couple shows ago, the debris it's in the right of way at the front of your street, in front of your property, that's going to get picked up. But if you want to give the state permission to come onto your property to remove debris removal, you've got to fill out the appropriate forms online.
Right.
And that's the difference about, you don't have to do anything if it's in the right of way.
And we just as soon do it on your lot,
Yeah.
instead of the right of way stuff. It will end as well at some point in time. So we'd rather just come on your lot and not scrape it to the right of way, because it leaves a mess on the right of way. The debris doesn't get all picked up.
Yep.
You got to send somebody back through to do it. But so back to the permitting situation. I'm not comfortable. I talk to our staff every day about how we've got Parks and Rec people that we're training as permit technicians. We're transitioning the comfort stations on the island. That's another thing that's important. The Santini facility will over the next week will move those assets to the Baptist Church site, and which transitions some of their people out. So
Will the showers from Santini Plaza come to the
Correct.
beach? Oh, that's awesome, because I've had a
Correct.
number of people ask
Correct.
about how critical those
Correct.
showers are at Beach
I wish
Baptist.
we'd been a little more coordinated when one left and the
Yeah.
other eye, but we're fixing it. So we'll have a comfort station at the Baptist
Well, that's big
facility.
news. That's breaking news. That's good. That's good to hear, because a lot of people were concerned about that. Yeah.
So, but the permitting is just, we're using whatever resources we have. We've got additional requests into our state partners to consider more positions for that. They're going to provide. We don't have an HR person, unfortunately, right now.
Yeah.
And we've got all these vacancies that we're trying to fill. We're trying to do a pay and class study in the midst of all this, because we don't have good job descriptions. If you want to hire good people, you have to pay a competitive salary, and we don't have that situation exist. I'm struggling to even, when I advertise something, I don't really even know what to advertise salary-wise, because there's nothing that I can go to that tells me. I think the building department is just going to be an ongoing work effort. When people ask me how long, I really don't use a number, because it
Depends on the permit. Yeah.
it's on the permit. It's how complete the application is right up front. There's so many variables involved. I know it's frustrating. It's normally you can walk in and sit down at a counter with someone and talk to them and look at their paperwork and give them some advice. We don't even have that capability right now. We're trying to develop it. So they're trying real hard over there. They realize the council wants and the residents want as quick a process as possible so people can get to work, and we're doing everything we can to try to make it
And I
happen.
know the LPA is looking, and the council's looking for ways to streamline the process. If there's any obstacles in the way, if contractors have ideas, if anybody has ideas, a way to streamline, we still have to stay in concert with state law. The other thing I would suggest, I interviewed with the three top building officials for our first show, and the more I use the website, and I'm not a tech person, but the website, if you go on our website and you actually see the little sand dollars, there's one that says permitting. If you click that, there is tremendous information on there, and to the point where I can understand it, and you can go through the various frequently asked questions, and it will take care of about 80% of the questions in a really easy to understand format. There's some much more technical information there for folks who are much more sophisticated and are contractors or whatever, but there's some great stuff. There's a section on there on what you need a permit for. There's a whole list of things you don't need a permit for. There's so much great information on the website. I really encourage people to go on that website, hit the permitting sand dollar, and just read some of those frequently asked questions, because I think that'll alleviate the need to even call town hall in many occasions. There are a number of people that have very complex situations who really need to sit down and talk to somebody. I get that, respect that, but there are a lot of just, I get the questions as a council person all the time, and I'll go right to the website and I'll figure these out relatively quickly, because the information is on the website and it's very, very helpful. So I don't want to discourage people from that as an option as well, because if you just go on that permit section, great material that really would help alleviate the need to even come to the town. And I think it also addresses some of the rumors that are going on and some of the odd things that people are hearing, and it's very factual and very, very well presented. one of the charges that you were given amongst the hundreds of other things you're working on is to help us find a new town manager. And I'm curious, as you think about this, first of all, how's that going? And second of all, now that you've been here for a while, and obviously with your experience in local and municipal government, what do you think we should be looking for in a town manager, given our unique situation?
Someone that's up for a challenge.
Yeah.
This is a big challenge, and someone has to look past, the blemishes and the scars and the bruises that are here. The upside is so positive. Very low millage rate, high values, which makes financing easy. One of the biggest challenges for a manager is providing services with very limited resources. The resources are here. I've helped several communities recently with their manager search. I was up in the Panhandle for Jefferson County Commission meeting late last week, where they went through some applicants for their job. They had, I think, 17 applicants for a county manager position, which I hope we can get that many. They narrowed it down to 5, and they looked at those 5. It's difficult time in local government. Putting hurricane aside, it's difficult. It's difficult as elected folks. It's difficult as an appointed person. Citizens we're getting less patient, as we go along, it seems, and less tolerant, and we're quick to criticize and we're quick to call out, and that makes the job difficult. So we're getting in the profession, we're getting less movement. What you used to want to do, and I'll just use slur words or whatever, we used to want to steal a good person from another organization. You wanted someone who was employed. If someone's not employed, there's usually a reason they're not. And so to steal one from another community, there was more movement. And so in today's environment, it's harder to get people to move. I relocated my family, I think I counted 10 times in the 50 years of public service. That puts a lot of strain on the family. You got to have a very understanding wife, My youngest daughter, I moved when she was in high school, which is tough on a lady to move her out of high school. I feel bad for some of those things that I had my family go through. So, but this is a good job. If we can fill some of the gaps, because the good managers are going to dig deep into the situation here. I think you've got a great council. I think I've already said that your finances are good. Who doesn't like the beach? Everybody comes to Florida for the beach. A plan for fixing the assets that are damaged. If you can build a good team, you create an environment for a good person to want to come here, and that's what you want to do. And then, as long as I'm on the team, then I'll advocate. When I met with a county manager and other city managers, like, who's on your bench? Mm-hmm. You have to be willing to share talent, and this town needs that. So whether it's Roger Desjardins at the county, or it's one of the other communities that are close by that may have a deputy that's ready, that's the way. You just have to network. Is it still
is the process still in the infancy?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. We're still, looked at a job description today, trying to get it updated. I've begun recruiting, and getting the word out. Our agreement, Keith and I, who will come next week, not next week, week after, is to try to get this done in 6 months. And we've been so focused on other things, I'm beginning to worry that we'll get it done in the 6 months. So we'll see. It takes a couple of months of recruiting once it's officially out there. You want to make sure that the word gets out. Some of the publications you use, if they're still doing newsletters and things like that, people don't see the ad for a few weeks. So anyway, work ahead of us on that.
Tell me a little bit about, I see you and Keith as partners in this whole exercise, and I think of professional wrestling, you're almost like tag team when you're going to the turnbuckle to tag Keith, and he's coming down here. You'll still obviously be involved, but you won't physically be here as much. Tell our audience a little bit about what to expect from Keith Wilkins. Who is this guy, and what's his story, and why should we be excited? I've talked to him a little bit. Seems like a wonderful person, but you know him really well.
Keith was my deputy. He was the city manager in Pensacola as an interim before I got there, and after I left, he became the city manager and served, I think, for 2 years after I left. Recently retired, almost a little over a year ago, from the city of Pensacola, and he is one of those folks that just has a passion for local government. He worked at Escambia County for, I think, 13 years, and with the city for another 7 or 8. He has some private sector experience. He's much more technically oriented than I am. Mm-hmm. I'm more of a big picture, motivate, let's charge the hill, he's more analytical, which is a positive thing.
Probably better sometimes. For the second phase anyways, right? Because you had to kind of come in here.
I think we're good. He started talking to me after he retired, had seen what I enjoyed doing in my retirement was helping where people really needed help. And there is, when local governments are in transition in leadership, it's hard. There's no playbook. There's not a resource you'd think there would be, managers that sign up to do this kind of work. It's very difficult on your family if you're gone for long periods of time. It's not for everybody. And Keith seemed to, this will be his first since he retired. And I'm kind of, whatever kind of training, whatever I can share with Keith about my experiences to help him. A little unique to come in when the staff knows you're a short timer, all right? When they know they can outlast you, probably.
In State we used to call that the weebies. We be here when you come, we be here when you go, yeah.
So it takes different kinds of motivation to get folks' attention sometimes. And I think Keith will do great. He's maybe, I don't know if he's more personable than I am. He's a nicer guy than I am, I think. So it's a different style and approach, but he's very technically competent. I think he communicates very well. He's very supportive of staff. I think the staff will like working for him. So I think he'll be good. And it is important to kind of, I tell folks here that want to take time off, please do. You need to recharge the batteries. This wears on you. 10, 12-hour days with all the destruction around you wears on you. And so a break is good. I'm looking forward to the first week of January of getting some golf in and relaxing, and I will come back for the meetings that second week of January, and then we'll go from there. But Keith will do a fine job.
Chris, while we have this pretty good audience with our friends in the media and our own social media platforms, any other message you want to get out to the community right now, particularly as we approach Christmas?
Well, there's a lot going on behind the scenes you can't see. I think the debris clearing, I want to thank the county who got on San Carlos Boulevard in the last couple of weeks. That's the main entrance to our community, and it looks a lot better coming into town over the bridge and everything now with all the debris being gone. It just lifts you. We generally have Times Square area, clean from debris. We need to get some sand out of the gutters on San Carlos. We need to get some a commitment on street lights from Florida Power and Light so that we have proper lighting both in our neighborhoods and on our main thoroughfare. I know beaches are important. There's a great deal of work going in to restoring the beach system, and however anybody looks at that. I'm very careful down here of talking about beaches because everybody has a different understanding of what a healthy beach is here, but we hope to get our parking system back up and running. I wasn't here this past weekend. I was here the weekend before that and spent some time on the beach. It was crowded. I hear this past weekend it was even more crowded.
People are coming back.
So
it's great.
We have to get our parking signs up. We have to get the access points safe for the public to be able to get from the parking lot to the beach. We're anxious to have visitors back on the island, and the beach is what brings them here. So I know there was a workshop where we presented a lot of information to y'all about the beach restoration process. It's very complicated, multiple funding sources, but it is a high priority for us. And then, you know, just the other things that I've already mentioned of trying to get things up and running and get new offices set up and get staff hired and figure the finances out and deal with the legislature when they go in session. So that's what we focus on.
Got our hands full. Got our hands full. But thank you for your service, Chris. Thanks for being with us today. Thank you for watching. Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays, everyone. We'll look forward to our next episode of Key Questions with key staffers with the town of Fort Myers Beach. Again, my name is Jim Matterholt. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.